We've got some.
Hey, I'm Luis.
And I'm Luis.
And you're listening to the Content is Profit podcast.
We spent the last 4 years learning the strategies and techniques from some of the top marketers in the world on how to create content that turns into profit. And today, we're bringing them to you so you can take action immediately and start creating real content momentum.
If you'd like to learn more about how to turn your content into profit, go to contentisprofit.com. Oh, yeah.
That's right, guys. Today, how thought-provoking ideas can create a massive impact. I love this topic, guys. You know what? Because we are so afraid of sharing our message sometimes. And today's guest, he has no fear whatsoever.
No fear whatsoever. Guys, please do not forget to subscribe. Smash that subscribe button of Content is Profit podcast. And don't forget to follow us on social media at BizRosCo on Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to drop us a DM. We're happy to answer any questions and create those content conversations.
That's right, guys. And if you find value in what we're talking about, right? And if you know anybody that might find value in what we're talking about, please don't forget to share the stream.
I love it. So today's guest is one of those people that you cannot ignore if they walk into the room. He's definitely one of our current role models. He's energetic, he's passionate, he's charismatic, but most importantly, he is an action taker.
That's right, guys. The first time we saw him, he was sitting in front of us in a conference and we were mind blown by his productivity. Communicating with his team, hopping on calls, creating social media posts. Immediately we went like, who is this dude? So we went into creeper mode. A couple months later, we sat at a round table. All of a sudden, he pops out of nowhere. His first words were, "How can I help you all?" He took the time to listen to all 10 of us and through asking the right questions, helped each one of us figure out what we needed to do next. We knew then we were in the presence of greatness.
Yeah. He has grown and managed 6 million followers in social media. He's responsible for more than $2 million in sales plus $2 other million in confirmed client and student sales. He's just a money-making machine. He has been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneurs, Yahoo Finance, The Today Show, Huffington Post, and Buzzfeed. And he's the host of the most thought-provoking show on the planet, Think Different Theory.
That's right, guys. Please welcome the most thought-provoking guest, the master of communication, Russell Brunson's new bestie and host of the Think Different Theory podcast, Mr. Josh Forti! Welcome. Welcome, Josh. Welcome.
I think we need Russell Brunson to see this. I think that's what we need. That's what needs to happen now.
We're definitely gonna clip that part and just like send it to him.
Just send it to him.
Just send it to him. Be like, Russell Brunson needs to hear this. Oh man,
Yeah, maybe
that's
with
funny.
another
I
box.
just
Go ahead, sorry.
I just sent Russell some steaks the other day.
I was just gonna say.
Yeah. So I was like, I was talking to Steve Larson. I was like, dude, do you know if Russell eats steak? He's like, I know he used to. I don't know what he does now with all his stuff. So we sent him a whole care package of food. So
That
anyway,
is
guys,
amazing.
thank you for that intro. That was amazing.
Of course, man, you deserve that and
Way more.
Way more.
Yeah.
You have no idea how much of an influence you've been in us and in our business. So we thank you for that ahead of time. And just for the audience that maybe they might not be heard of you, who is yours 40? Like,
Oh man, geez, that's such a deep question. Well, I am I'm a content creator. I'm a podcaster. I don't know. I did some speaking once or twice before in my life. But all in all, I build audiences wildly profitable audiences of engaged, loyal fans of customers that are ready to buy from you immediately. And I'm a mindset nerd, mindset junkie. I absolutely love and am fascinated by the mind and by thinking and by thought and by purpose and asking deeper, bigger questions of life. I'm the host of Think Different Theory, which is the world's most thought-provoking show, as you guys know. And
Yes.
I also have a really cool content team called Biz Bros who does all that content for Think Theory. And guys, if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube channel, you should give Biz Bros all your money because they do a fantastic, amazing job. So there's my little shameless plug for you guys there. But I build audiences. Long story short, I build audiences for people. I've had clients like ClickFunnels, Steve Larson, Dave Woodward, Julie Stoyan, Cody Neer, like you name it. Lots in that ClickFunnels world. Brad Gibb, we did his launch cash flow tactics over there. Grown and managed over 6 million followers, like you said, and $3 million in revenue generated for clients. Now we just crossed the $3 million mark, which is super exciting for clients and students. I live in Omaha, but I'm getting ready to move to Denver area, Colorado, which is going to be super fun.
Wow, amazing. Let us know as soon as you get there because we might pay you a visit. Yeah. We are ready to go.
Do you know those pictures we were planning for the thumbnails? We're like, hey, Josh, we're going to meet you in Denver and we're going to take all those pictures in there.
Perfect. Hey, I'm down for that. We're August, I think is August 1st, beginning of August is when we're headed out there. And yeah, it's a pretty sweet view. We're right between Denver and Boulder, so like right between the foot of the mountain and Denver, and get to have a mountain view of everything every morning, which would be pretty dope. So I'm excited.
That's amazing. It's funny because my wife is Canadian and she comes from the mountains and we live in Florida next to the beach. And every time, we developed these amazing relationships that everybody is now in the mountains. And I'm like, hey, will you ever consider like maybe moving for a year or two over there? And she's like, absolutely not. So I'm like, dang it.
Well, I mean, hey, Florida or some beach, some form of beach is the next stop after Colorado. So who knows? Maybe we'll head down to Florida.
There you go.
Sounds like a plan. Hey, Josh, like something I want our listeners to know, if you wouldn't mind sharing, right? Because obviously we know your story. And we know very well that there's a before Josh and I think an after Josh, right? So I know for the fact of obviously listening to your podcast and all your stories, like that you have grown a lot and you're into mindset. And honestly, I think that I've been getting more into mindset since we started working with you,
big time,
which I honestly appreciate because I have felt the growth. So if you wouldn't mind sharing that before Josh, like aspirations, everything with the Josh of today.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. That's such a great question. So, I mean, for context, like, I build audiences now, but why I build audience is actually super interesting because I believe that having an audience of your own, that putting out content, let me back up. When you understand how an audience is created and you understand the parts of an audience, what an audience allows you to do is that it is the single greatest thing that I believe allows you to be yourself, allows you to it forces you to have to know who you are and like what you're about, because you have to have that attractive character who's polarizing, who stands up for things like in your audience. So number one, it allows you to be yourself. Number two, figure out what your message is. Number three, have the most amount of impact possible because you are now building an audience, a movement of like-minded people around this message, around this mission that you have. And then also is the thing that is going to allow you to make the most amount of money and have the most amount of freedom. Now, as cliche as that sounds, you think about it, every single successful business that you know of today, across the board, whether it's ClickFunnels or Google or Nike or my own or whatever, every single one has an audience in some format, right? And so for me, when I set out to build my audience, and we'll get into the backstory here, I knew that I wanted to kind of create this world of my own, that where I could be my own thing, my own person, do what I wanted to do. Yeah. And like I use this terminology of create your own reality, right? And my mom was always like, you can't just create your own reality. Reality is what it is. And I don't believe that at all, right? I'm really big into mindset, as you guys said, and as you guys alluded to, and having an audience and building audiences. The reason I'm so passionate about this and that I'm so passionate about telling people to go out and build your audience is because I'm most passionate about mindset and personal development and becoming the best version of yourself. And I believe that having an audience allows you to actually go and become that best version and takes off so many limitations that a job or an employer or clientele that you don't like or limited options does. Like an audience just gives you options to go out and live your best life. But if I want to back up, like I grew up on a farm. I grew up middle class, like middle class to lower middle class. I'd say middle class. I wouldn't say lower middle class, but like paycheck to paycheck. We lived on a farm. My dad worked all the time, just, to pay the bills. My parents, like there's no such thing as like retirement or savings or anything like that. Like that was a good idea, but like you made money to pay the bills and the cycle repeated. Right.
Yeah.
And so, at age 11 was when we moved to my parents' farm that they still own to this day. My neighbor owned thousands of acres. I helped him grow, and I had this association of like, if I want to go and create freedom, if I want to be successful in life, I need to go out and make a lot of money. Like that was the type. Every problem that I had in life at that time when I was 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 years old, right, was tied to making a lot of money. If I could just make a lot of money, that was the answer. And so throughout my journey of graduating from high school, trying to start a farming business, having it fail and run out of money, to starting an insurance, to going to college, to dropping out of college, to quitting insurance. Like it was all this pursuit of like, how do I just go and make money? Because if I could just figure out how to make money, I thought that was going to, equal freedom, that was going to equal living this life that I wanted to live. What I quickly realized along the way was that there was so many other factors in that, and we can kind of dive into the story there, into online marketing. And I grew followers. I made money. I made $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in a month before. And I was completely depressed, completely like overwhelmed, had no system, no team, didn't know how to lead people, was working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, literally. And I don't, that is not an exaggeration. My average sleep was 5 hours a night. My average time to wake up and shower and eat throughout the day was 1 hour. So when I say I worked 18 hours a day, I literally mean I worked 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I didn't go to friend's house. I didn't go to the movies. I didn't have friends over. I didn't have a girlfriend. Like there was nothing else except for work. And that led me to this moment of something's got to change. Something's going to break. I can't keep, I'm making unbelievable amounts of money. My last job before I worked at, like in this, my base salary was $25,000 a year. Yeah. And then any commission that I made off of that, and I made one sale the whole year. One. So I basically made $2,500 or $25,000 for a year. And now all of a sudden I'm making $50,000 or $60,000 in a month. In my head, old Josh says, I should have been happy. I should have been fulfilled. I should have been, living my best life. And here I was flying first class from New York to Miami to Las Vegas to LA. Like I was living the dream, but I was super depressed, overwhelmed, and everything like that. And so I went from that to like having this moment of realization of, this doesn't work. This sucks. I'm super depressed. And I remember going to Funnel Hacking Live in Orlando. I sat there. I was listening to Allison Prince, who I've had on my show before. I mean, we're friends now or whatever, but I remember sitting there and it was like the first or second row. I was hanging out with, actually, you guys know Steve, you had him on the show. I was hanging out with like Steve and Colton and Marie and like, everybody, like the Larsons and like everything. It was awesome. Right. And there was a couple of friends there. And I remember like sitting there just looking up on stage and Allison's like, here's how we did this $1 million business and life is great and wonderful. And I'm like, you suck. Honestly, like I work 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's nothing more I can do, right? Like I don't know the path. And I just thought if I hustled, if I worked hard, if I made the right amount of money, like if that was it. And keep in mind, I was putting out content. I was live streaming every single day, 7 days a week. I was putting out massive amounts of content. I had a massive following at that point. I was managing a Facebook group of over 30,000 members. Wow. I was managing over 100,000 followers on Instagram at the time, right? I had Todd Dickerson, like people like these as clients, like big names, like everything in my life pointed to where I should have been successful or happy. Yeah. But I was spending 80% of the amount of money I made every single month to fix problems and fulfill for clients. Okay. Because I didn't know what I was doing. So my profit margins were pretty low. I mean, I was still making great money, but I was spending it like that. And I remember leaving Funnel Hacking Live thinking like everybody's all pumped up. I feel super depressed. I feel overwhelmed. Like I don't know what's next. I flew to Chicago, spoke at an event in Chicago. I was set to sign a 35th floor apartment building overlooking the Chicago Bears Stadium and the water on one side and the city and all the skyscrapers on the other side. I was approved. Everything was good. All I had to do was sign. That's it. And I remember there was this like small voice in the back of my head that was like, don't sign. Like, do not sign that for that apartment. I was like, all right. So I ended up flying home. And like, that was the day that I broke. I went to sleep that night and I woke up the next morning. Keep in mind, I have $50,000 months, right? I have thing coming in. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And it was at at that moment, I was the most depressed, most upset, most lost I've probably ever been in my life. And at least up, at that point. And so I woke up that morning, I grabbed my computer. I didn't even leave bed. I wrote an email to all my clients. I canceled all my clients. I refunded tens of thousands of dollars in refunds. Oh. And I just cried myself back to sleep and was like, I'm so done. Like I'm super done. I went from making $50,000 a month to less than $3,000 in a matter of, well, I say overnight. It was literally 15 minutes, right? That it was just gone, just like that. And at that moment I was like, all right, I've got a choice. I'm really faced with a choice right here at this moment. I'm either going to quit and this is going to be the end of it, or I'm going to figure this whole thing out. And I just remember looking around and watching the Russell Brunsons, the Gary Vaynerchuks, the Tony Robbins of everything, and looking at them. They're like, mindset's the answer. Mindset's the answer. Mindset's the answer. Yeah. And I'm like, I thought I had a good mindset, right? I'm making more than all of my friends combined put together back in high school. You know what I mean? Like per month, right? You know what I'm saying? And it's like, where did I go wrong? And so for the next 7 months, I lived primarily off of savings, and I studied mindset, and I studied Joe Dispenza, and I studied quantum physics, and I studied Tony Robbins, and I studied, and I read the book Psycho-Cybernetics, and just studied and learned and studied and learned and studied and learned. And 7 months later, I kind of came out of it and actually launched something again, and was like, hey, we're back, we're doing things. And I started sharing what I had learned, just kind of in some of my content, and so many people were so fascinated.
Amazing.
They were like, this is, it's incredible. How do we learn more about this? And so then that's when Daxi, do you guys know Daxi and Ryan?
Yeah.
Awesome. Super, super, super good guys. And they're like, dude, you need to launch a podcast. And I was like, nah, dude, I don't know, I'm a video type person or whatever. I don't do podcasts. I'm a video person. Right. And he's like, dude, people need to hear this. Just trust me on this. So we went through this process, and in January of last year, 2019 is when Think Different Theory was born. And we've done 230 episodes or something like that of the show
a big amount.
So far. We're not including Facebook views or downloads or YouTube stuff, which we have a kind of a ballpark range. We are counting some of those as downloads. We can't count a view as a download, obviously, but we have a kind of a rough metric, not counting any form of video views or anything like that, like audio downloads. We're just shy of 150,000 downloads, all organically, and then on top of the close to probably 100,000 downloads that that would be considered views there from sharing that. So about 250,000, I would say, just coming up on 250,000 downloads and views.
That is amazing, Josh. Wow, what a ride in the last 5 minutes. But you evolve clearly, right? Do you think you went through this moment of hey, money mindset, I can create my reality? While you were doing that, right? You encountered some challenges that were hey, I can't do this anymore. And then you kind of evolve from that point on, talking about mindset, researching mindset. And now you obviously have a really, really cool business, and you're providing so much value. Do you think for a lot of people, when trying to go into entrepreneurship or even content, right? We've seen it a lot of time. Do you think that moment before you break is necessary? We hear a lot about hustle, learn and do this and do that. And it doesn't matter, and don't sleep. And, we have this view of, if you work your tail off and you don't sleep and you put in the work, is gonna be. Do you think that's necessary?
I think it's a fascinating question. It's a super good question, actually. I thought about it a lot. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it is oftentimes inevitable for a lot of people. So when I think back of how I grew up and how I got into the online marketing space, right? I came in through network marketing.
Oh, wow.
Right? That you think about that. The first business venture that I absolutely ever tried, outside of flipping stuff on Facebook and driving for Uber, I tried to sell water systems, right? And the teaching there was more, make more offers, get in front of more people. If people say no, just keep going. You get a lot of the Gary Vaynerchuk. I mean, Gary Vaynerchuk brings in a lot of people, right? I was big into Gary Vee, and I love Gary Vee, right? I roasted him, he's roasted me, right? We have a little feud going, right? But you're kind of programmed, right? You're programmed to believe and act a certain way. Your mind has a finite capacity of things, right? And it only knows what it knows. It doesn't know what it doesn't know. And so oftentimes a lot of people that come into the entrepreneurship world, it's this big whole ecosystem, right? There's the top of the high quality, top of the food chain type of people. These are your Russell Brunsons, right? The people that have it figured out, that understand it. And then there are the low end of the totem pole people, which are, and I'm not bashing the industry as a whole, but pretty terrible marketers or networkers, pretty terrible people to sell stuff online are just, they suck at it, right? Like they're just not good at it because of lack of education. Now that's not a bash on any specific individual. That's not a bash on network marketing. I have a lot of good friends in network marketing, right? A lot of them do it the right way. Steve Larson does network marketing. Russell Brunson does network marketing. They do it the right way, right? But there's everything in between there. And so depending upon where you come in from determines whether or not that thing is ultimately necessary for you to do. For me, it was. I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have, some billionaire or, super successful person that, took me under their wing in the internet marketing space, right? I had some mentorship in traditional business, which really, really helped me. So that avoided me a lot of pitfalls. But I think like who you learn from is going to determine that. And so if you don't have a mentor, if you're not willing to invest in yourself, if you, are going to take the school of hard knocks, I would say it's probably pretty inevitable, right? I mean, not everybody's born Elon Musk, right? So some people are just super genius and figure it out. For me, it was. But I do think that while that moment of breaking and that moment of depression and that moment of everything like feeling like a failure, while that might not be necessary or inevitable, I believe that there is a moment that must happen in every entrepreneur's life where they have to make a decision. Now, that decision for me came right after that moment. Right at that low point in my life when I was laying in bed in tears, just canceled $50,000 in clients, watched my bank account, have money, leave it to go, do these refunds. At that moment, that was when I made my decision, right? Yeah. And I think that that's where a lot of people make their decision is at that low point, right? It's this defining moment. But I think everybody has the defining moment that says, I am going to commit to make this work. And at that moment, that is when you become an entrepreneur. That's when you have officially started your journey to success. And for some people, that's when they quit their job. For some people, that's after they quit their job and they've just lost a ton of money. For some people, that's when they've made their first $10,000. Like everybody has that different moment, but you have to make a conscious decision to say, I am going to leave the old behind. I am going to go down this path of the new, and I will make this work come hell or high water. And at that moment, I think every entrepreneur has to make that decision.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's, for those listening that maybe haven't hit a point like that in their lives, don't be like just out waiting for it, right? Because again, like Josh said, like it's a conscious decision. So every single day, take it like, okay, what decisions can I make to move myself forward, right? But for example, someone that hit that point, that low point, what I'm seeing is a lot of people can be consumed by fear, right? And the position that you were in, hey, I have to refund all this money. They can clearly say, you know what, I'm going to stick to this just because I know I'm still going to be making money, but then keep a life of like suffering, to say it in a way, right? Yeah. And constant work. And there's been studies out there that there's actually like overwork is a reason that like kills people, literally, right? Like creates levels of stress. I was
darn close, I'll tell you what.
So like, again, don't be afraid to choose a new path, because that new path, yes, of course, is going to bring us new challenges, right? What doesn't have new challenges? Yeah. But as long as you're aware of that you can move forward past those challenges, I think everything is going to be okay. And something that you mentioned, right? I'm going to move a little bit the conversation to the audience that you were talking about. You are creating that content, right? And that talks about finding yourself. You said creating that audience has helped you to find yourself. I think a lot of people that might get presented the opportunity to make a decision, right? Whether to stick with what they know or go for something new. Maybe they don't know exactly who they are at the moment. And maybe that's why it's keeping them with fear and keeping them in the same path. Would you say that, like, did you know who you were at that point when you had to make that decision? Like, because you said you were publishing, right, consistently for about a year, but you weren't deep in that mindset. Let's say that deep in that mindset.
Yeah. So it's interesting because some people are held back from publishing because they don't know who they are and they're afraid to publish because of that. And then some people find their voice and figure out who they are through publishing, right? I'm the latter. I found my voice through publishing, and that, like, by building an audience, it allowed me to help me find who I was. My coach Katie has obviously very much impacted my life in absolutely astronomical, tremendous ways, right? Yeah. But going back to your specific question about this is, so when you think about it, like, if you know who you are and you are totally okay with that, right? Like, you own it. You're like, this is what I believe in. And a perfect example of this, let's go extreme here, right? Yeah. I'm a pretty controversial person when it comes to politics, right?
We love it.
I mean, pretty controversial, right? But people could be like, Josh, how dare you? Or, doesn't the hate bother you? Or doesn't the, aren't you worried about losing clients? Or aren't you worried about, and I hear that a lot, even from like family members or whatever, like, aren't you worried? And I'm like, no, because what I post is exactly what I believe. It's exactly who I am. I am not, like, people accuse me all the time, Josh, your engagement bait posts. I'm like, they are not engagement bait posts, right? Like, no, like, keep in mind, I have no shame in using engagement bait posts, right? But I'm like, I don't talk about the things that I talk about because I'm just trying to use a quick hack. I do that because I actually believe that. And no, none of that hate, none of that, those things bother me for the most part, right? Like, because it's who I am. And so if you are scared to put something out there, like, obviously you're not going to be perfect your first time doing it or whatever. But oftentimes the reason I say that people, sometimes are scared to put out content because they don't know who they are. They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of putting out this opinion or putting out this thing, and then someone coming through and just destroying it, right? Or judging them and saying like, oh no, you're wrong. And then that makes them look bad, right? And so there's really two parts of the content that you put out. There's the type of content that you put out that is who you are and what you're about. And then there's what you teach and your frameworks and your different things. Now, keep in mind, what people latch onto and what people follow is you and your story and what you're about. What people think people latch onto is what you teach and your frameworks and everything like that, which is not the case. Yeah. That gives them a reason to show up. That gives them to know, oh, that's what he teaches. I want to learn more about that. But what makes them stick around, what makes them actually want to follow you is your story and your message, right? And so what I tell people is like, hey, listen, like, you've got to figure out who you are and start putting out content in alignment with that. If you don't know what that is, then start over here with what you do know, right? The frameworks that you do know, because as you go and start teaching these things, you're going to start getting more and more confident in your voice, and you're going to start to realize what pieces of you actually fit in there that you are okay with sharing, right? But like, you've got to just start putting it out there, because you're going to be nervous. But once you start getting it out there and you start putting, your voice out there, you start putting content out there, now you're going to start to realize like, oh yeah, I'm starting to kind of create this character online of like who I actually believe I am, right? Yeah. Like, I actually like this, right? Oh, I'm not sure about this. I'm not going to say that today because I don't know if it's true for myself, right? I'm not going to go battle things about art or things about how to raise children or how to, I have no idea, right? Yeah. That's not me. That's not relevant to my story. That's not relevant to, who I am, right? So I'm not going to talk about those things because it's not me. So I'm going to talk about the things that are about me, and I'm going to find my voice through that. And the more you find your voice, the more the more you put out content, the more you find your voice, and vice versa. And it just is this ever evolving loop. But you have to get the loop going, right? The more confident that you are, the better you're going to put out content. The more content you put out, the better you're going to find your voice. And it's just this thing you get better and better and better at.
Amazing.
And so, does that make sense?
It does. Totally. It total sense. Like, you literally just gave the recipe to start creating content. Like, it's funny. We have so many conversations with people that obviously they see the show or they see our lives. And we talked with you about this. Like, we started with 45 Live. We committed to 45 days straight of Facebook Lives, right? And we had no idea what we were going to be talking about. Yeah. We just started telling stories about what was happening that day. And it evolved into applying, what we're doing for the business into that content, or just telling them or tying down the idea with what we do in business. And recently we, like a person very, very near to us, started their own challenge. They've been talking about publishing for a year and so on. And his dream is to be an entrepreneur, be a personality. But just now he's starting to publish that way. And he's like, what do I say? How do I say it? And now you can't stop him. It's like day 3 and he's like, can I do more than one? Can I just go live more than once? I'm like, as many as you can to find your message. So thank you, Josh, for bringing that important lesson and actually tell the audience how to actually start publishing.
Yeah, I think what you mentioned, the fear of judgment, right? And I think that is huge. I said it in previous episodes. I was stuck for 3 years. I didn't know it. It was that until now. But looking back, I know I was afraid of being judged, right? By the people that knew me, by my friends. And it's so silly because it's just stopping you from actually like taking action and moving forward.
Let me flip the script for people right now, okay? Because people are afraid of people judging them. I want people to judge me. And here's why. And I don't say that just to sound cliche or whatever. Like, let me actually break this down, right? I had this realization. I was debating this person one time on Facebook, right? About whatever, particular topic it was. And it was interesting because the arguments that he was giving me were arguments that I had heard before that I used to not have any retaliation for, right? And because I had this realization in that moment, I was like, oh, I know what he's going to say next. I literally know what his response to my response is going to be because I've said this and I know what the retaliation was. And so he did, sure enough, I posted my comment. He comes back and he says exactly what I thought he was going to say. But guess what? I knew how to respond to that. I was like, oh, I know how to respond to this because at one point, somebody, like I said what I had said and I believed that. And then somebody questioned it and somebody made me look like a fool. And I was like, I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to go learn that.
Yeah.
And so it's like I'm stress testing my ideas, right? I was just on a podcast with J.R. Reeves. He was talking about this. When I'm putting something out there, either like I want people to engage on it. I either want them to love it or I want them to hate it. I don't want them to be neutral on it, right? Because if they're neutral on it, I'm not getting back. They're not going to leave a comment if they're neutral, right? Yeah. If they love it, then I know, okay, my audience resonates with this. They like that story. They like what I'm talking about here. More content like this is going to benefit them. I'm doing a good job. This is good. If they hate it, now I look at it and I go, and I used to be like, oh my gosh, they think that, what I said about Facebook ads being bad, that they think I'm wrong. And now they're not going to take me seriously and they're never going to buy from me or whatever. Now I'm like, no, now I know what that type of person is saying in response to that, whether it's a political issue or a framework issue or what I teach or who I am or whatever. And either A, I can say, you're not my ideal audience, no problem. Or you are my ideal audience. Do you have a point? Okay, like, if it's a political issue or a social issue or something where I'm open to having my mind changed, I'm like, okay, great. Like, you're a Democrat and you support blah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Why? Like, why is that? Right. Yeah. And on the flip side of a framework, if they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense or how dare you're just stupid. You don't understand that there's blah, 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 blah. Now I'm like, oh, that's all their fears. Oh, that's what they're dealing. Oh, that's what they're going through. And now I can tweak and adjust my message to now come back and resonate with them more. And so if you're afraid of what you're putting out, it's because you're worried about what people think and you have absolutely nothing to worry about with that. Like, let people hate on you. It's totally fine. Like, believe me, like you'll get into the club eventually where you're like talking to the bigwigs that produce lots and lots of content. And I've got to hang out with some like major producers and they're like, dude, we love it when people hate on us. We go through and we like, so it's like, it's kind of like a badge of honor almost, right? On the flip side, if you do feel personally insulted, that's a place for you to grow. That's a place for you to ask yourself the question of like, do my beliefs need to change? Right? Yeah. Does the way I'm looking at this need to change? Or am I right? And I feel bad for this person that they don't see things the same way I do, but at least I now know that I am absolutely certain in what I believe. My beliefs and how I present things and how I communicate has changed so dramatically, radically over the course of the last 4 years since I've had an audience because of the feedback that I'm getting back. People are afraid of feedback and they don't have to be.
Yeah, no, that is so on point. I want to relate what you just said to part of our story because we grew up playing soccer, right? And what you just told about like getting that feedback, right? Like hate or whatever, and the big wigs are like, we absolutely love it. I remember when like we grew up again. I played soccer for almost like 20 years of my life, over 20 years of my life, pretty competitive, and I used to love going to an away team field and have their crowd just like scream things at me. That'll be like fuel, and I'll be like, okay, time to crush them now. Like I would score, and then I would turn around, point at their stands. And recently, my brother came, and he's like, dude, have you noticed that every time we're gonna record a podcast, it's kind of like game day. I feel like the little jiggles, like the excitement, and now I can totally relate it to that because I'm like, that is exactly right. Like we got the same feeling, we got the same feedback from the people that either love you or hate you. And now those that hate you, it doesn't offend you because you are totally comfortable with your beliefs, like you're saying, right? And you can look at them and tell them, hey, you know what? Doesn't matter because this is what I believe. And And I mean, it's not going to hurt you who you are.
Yeah. I also, sorry, go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say, to add on to that too, like one of the things my coach taught me, because I was like, Coach Katie, if I put out content and it, it turns off these people over here, it's not going to do this. And I was all worried about what people thought and feedback and download numbers and everything like that. She's like, Josh, who do you want in your audience? And I was like, I mean, people that are free thinkers, people that are into mindset, people that are entrepreneurs, people that are, this or whatever. And she's like, cool. So would you say that your message resonates with them? And I was like, yeah, for the most part. I was like, but not all entrepreneurs. Like, I want entrepreneurs over here. They believe this or whatever. And she's like, do you want those people in your audience though? Like, is that what you actually want right now? Or if you had a choice between 200 people here or 200 people here, and you could have half your dream audience and half of those other people, or all of your dream audience, who would you want? And I was like, well, all of my dream audience, obviously. She's like, it is equally as important that when you're putting out content to speak to your ideal customer as it is to repel the people that you don't want. Because here's the deal. Like, if you're true to who you are, you're going to attract the type of people that you want to attract. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen on season 1, right? It might happen in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, but it will never happen if you are not intentional about it, right? So you have to know who you are. And if you're going, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe. And if you don't like that, that's totally okay. I don't judge you for that, right? If you don't like my political beliefs, my, beliefs on mindset, my beliefs on business, fine. I don't need you around anyway. That's not a slam on you. I'm going to be me. You're going to start to attract those people, and they're going to become the most loyal, dedicated people that you have ever. Since I have started getting political and getting in that type of stuff, the loyalty of my audience has gone through the roof. I'll post something where I'm like just pissed off about something, and I'll be like, come on, guys, like we can, and people will be like, yeah, let's go. And the people that hate me will unfollow me or leave,
exactly.
right? Or not about that. The key thing to remember is this. Your audience will follow. Your loyal audience will follow you no matter what, and the haters aren't going to stick around for very long. If somebody disagrees or doesn't like what you're saying, they're either A, going to leave, not stick around, and you're never going to have to talk to them again, or they're going to drive engagement and just get you more followers and more listeners.
Yeah, so I love this because it resonates with a lot of also what the guests have been saying lately. Same thing. It's the same message. It's like you got to be aligned and, use your message as a filter, right? Is these the right people that we need to be talking about? Mm-hmm. So we come also from the brick and mortar industry, right? We used to work for the fitness industry for a long time. And when we're having these conversations with that type of business owner, the fear is because they're on, maybe a physical location. It's like, well, if I pull this out, right, even though my belief system says A, I don't want to say A because then I won't have traffic into my store, right? So us being online allows us to be a little bit more flexible with that because there's always these places. So what would you say to somebody that is very limited like that? Because everybody should be doing content and should be putting value out there and connecting with their audiences. What should we say, or what would you say to these people that have that mental block or limiting belief, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to answer this 2 ways, because I want to be very practical first, and then I want to kind of pivot into what I actually believe, right? Mm. So first and foremost, like you have to know your audience and you have to know your business, right? If you are a brick and mortar gym, you have to decide the type of clientele that you want to attract to that gym, right? And if you are someone who has decided that this gym is going to be a place where you're not going to hold strong views, it is a family-friendly gym maybe, or it's a gym where you catering specifically to a local market, now your messaging is going to be less controversial within the people of that local market, and you're going to throw rocks at people outside of that, right? So I'm in Omaha. If I ran a gym that was in Omaha and I didn't want to be controversial and potentially piss off half my customer base, I could throw rocks at anything that was non-Omaha or Nebraska related, right? So I'd be like, we're all about the Huskers. Yeah, everybody in Omaha loves that, right? Yeah. We're all about the this. Everybody loves that. Yeah, those New England Patriots and Tom Brady, right? They suck, right? Like people would relate to that, right?
Yeah.
Those fit. So I'm throwing rocks outside of my market at a local base. And like, I'm not going to let my own personal political beliefs or, business beliefs or mindset beliefs or ways of living interfere with my business, because for knowing that I want to serve my local audience and local community that way. So you can still be controversial. It's just a different type of controversial. You're taking a stand of, in a different way, and you're building that identity by attracting what those people are after, because those are your ideal audience, right? Yeah. On the flip side of that, and I would say the second way that I'm going to answer this, which if I were a local business owner, right? Like, I'm very vocal in my beliefs, right? I don't want you there. If I owned a gym, I don't want oh yeah, you did great today, pat on the back, right? Like, that's not what I would be about, right? I don't own a gym probably for a reason. But one of the things that I learned from Phil Jones, that he explained it very, very well. I did this interview with Phil Jones, is he said, your actions must match the story. All right. And he gave the example. He said, if you were to go right now to everybody on your block and you say, hey, can I have $100? Right? They're probably going to say no. Yeah. Right? You might get one person that feels nice and give you $100. But if you went to every single one of those same people and you said, hey, listen, we're raising money for a disabled person. We're raising money for a charity that's going to service blah, 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 blah. All of your money will go directly to blah. Now, all of a sudden, your actions match the story, right? And now you're saying, hey, listen, I need that $100. How many more people are likely to give you that $100? Yes. Right? So many more people. Same thing is true in your business. Your actions need to match the story that you're putting out there. So guess what? If I know that I am a super political person or a super mindset motivated person and I owned a gym and I wanted to establish a dominance in that space and I wanted to be about that, I need to pivot my actions and say, you know what? I'm probably not going to get as many customers, right? But guess what I am going to get? Diehard customers. And guess what diehard customers do? Diehard customers spend a whole lot more money than the average everyday person does. So if, let's say, I have no idea what an average gym runs, right? But let's just say I have 1,000 memberships at $50 a membership at a normal gym. So I'm making $50,000 a month. If I know that I'm going to go be political or I'm going to be, like really good out there and be controversial, I may lose 20% of my membership, right? And so all of a sudden I go from 1,000 now to 800. So I just lost $10,000 a month. Guess how easy it is to add an extra $10,000 a month on the back end to someone that's now a diehard or to someone that shares more than one common interest with you. Because now they just went from I'm coming to you to because you're a gym to now I'm coming to you because you're a gym and we share the same political beliefs and we share whatever. Now there's more commonality. Yeah. I'm gladly willing to pay you more money now, whether that's a premium membership or upsells or one-on-one training. I'm going to buy them from you rather than somebody else because I resonate with you. So even though you lose something, if you pivot and your actions match the story that you're putting out there, you're going to be able to make just as much, if not more money, and have the impact that you want to have with in alignment with what you believe.
Yeah. First of all, I got a few things to say here. For people that are listening or watching this live, go check his episode with Phil Jones. Dude, that's like one of my favorite episodes you've done.
Wasn't it great?
Oh, it was amazing. I didn't know who Phil Jones was. Tell my brother. I was like,
really?
Dude, he's so awesome. I went and I bought his book. We both bought the book.
Read it, listened to everything.
So I love that reference. His podcast was incredible. Yeah. And something I'm listening to what you're saying right now is instant gratification. Like right now we live in a world of instant gratification where people want those quick wins, right? They have that short-term view. And what you're saying is that like being a people pleaser, wanting to please and have everybody is more of a short-term view. Because yes, you might be profiting on the short run right now in the front end, but like you said, they're no hardcore, they're no die-hard fans. They're not gonna stay with you for a while, and their lifetime as a customer is not gonna be too big, right?
Right. But it is not. You're absolutely right. It's going to go down. The more loyal. Think about this. Think about a ClickFunnels person right now, right? Who are the most diehard loyal ClickFunnels users out there? Everybody in Inner Circle. They pay Russell $50,000 a year to be in Inner Circle. You think someone that's just kind of is going to pay Russell $50,000 a year to be in his Inner Circle? Heck no, they're
definitely not.
Right?
Not only that, like think about like the amplified impact that has. Like all these people in the Inner Circle, they not only have a super big lifetime average value, but they, through their voice, because they're super indoctrinated in, I don't care if I have any haters, right? They're going to pull in people to ClickFunnels as well. So it becomes a long-term strategy view. Again, not looking for that instant gratification, I guess, society that we live in right now. And that is one of the main things that I've like realized lately. It's like, wow, we've been so focused in what is the next quick win that we can get, right? And people always think about what is the fastest way I can create content and make money. And that's the wrong mentality, because nothing
100%.
is gonna be like that. Like, you gotta be consistent, right? It's a compounding effect. You got that book, The Slight Edge, that talks about that compounding effect until eventually you see the results. The actions that you take today are gonna reflect the results that you get tomorrow. It's not like I create an action right now and I see the results right now. So
100%.
I love the story of being polarizing with your message and attracting the people, because I see it as a long-term play game, I guess.
Yeah, focusing on the back
Yeah,
end,
for
right?
sure.
Like, a lot of people forget that back end is a thing, and sometimes it's more valuable. So thank you for bringing that.
Your
up
best friend Russell Brunson, he says that all the time, right? Like,
That's right.
the pros focus on the back end.
Right, and that's exactly right. I think one of the biggest mistakes that I did in my business early on, and the single best, maybe not the single, but one of the best things that I've learned and that I'm doing now in my business beforehand was you build a business piece by piece, right? Like, you just do, right?
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, when you're entering a business, guess what you need to focus on? You need to focus on the things that are going to generate you cash flow, like right away in your business, right?
Yep.
You've got to have an amazing product or service, and you've got to have a way to sell that. But that's not really a business, right? I just released an episode of my podcast today called The 7 Parts of a Real Business, right? And like how I literally just recently actually became, I feel like, a real business, because I can identify like my KPIs and my bottlenecks and like everything like that. But at the beginning, it's like, okay, like, where am I going to focus on? Listen, I'm not going to try to go do 7 different, platforms of content right at the beginning.
Yep.
Like, those are important eventually, right? But I've got to make sure that each thing is done right. And even if I could go and get 10,000 views on something, the reason I'm not on TikTok right now, all right? I think TikTok is a great platform, right? I think if you want to go viral, you want to get lots of followers fast, you want to go do all those things, that's amazing, right? For that. Now, I think there's massive security issues, and I think everybody should not be on it anyway from a security standpoint. But other than that, like, from an actual business standpoint, I think it's great, right?
Yeah.
Why am I not on, like, focusing any time or effort to put out content or create content on there? Well, because that's not the phase of my business that I'm in right now. Right? I'm building these building blocks. There's always going to be the next thing. We as a society, there will always be the next trend. There will always be the next thing that you can capitalize on. And TikTok may be one of those things where I'm going to lose out on in the short term. But guess what? If I build my business correctly, I'm going to make millions of dollars before I would ever need TikTok. And then guess what I can do? I can literally just go to all my TikTok influencer friends and be like, yo, what up? I'll pay you 10 grand. You want to blow me up? I just get 50,000 followers from them. And all of a sudden, overnight, in a matter of 6 months, I can go from 1,000 followers on TikTok to 200,000 followers on TikTok over the course of 6 months. And I might have been able to do that for free beforehand, but I had no business or any way to sell them anyway. Now I actually have a business. Now I actually have a service. So I have systems. I have a team. I have fulfillment. I have, a running, working company. And now I'm going to add that traffic to the fire and build the correct way. So you have to focus on the highest value dollar activities. And at the beginning of your business, the single greatest top act you can do are number one, you gotta have a solid offer in place. Single-handedly. Number two, you have to produce content. You have to build an audience, right? Like, producing content and building an audience is the thing that's going to bring you leads. It's the thing that's going to sell the leads beforehand. It's going to thing that make you relevant. Like, you've got to produce content. You have to build an audience. And then the third thing is you got to learn how to sell. If you don't know how to do one of those 3 things, you're going to have a freaking hard time making any money or getting your business off the ground. So don't worry about anything else. Like, you've got to take it in bits and pieces. The same thing is true when you're creating your content. It's like, okay, I can't create every single piece of content now, right? But what can I do? I'm in this boat right now, right? I want to have a Joe Rogan style podcast. I do, right? But guess what? You know how expensive it is to have a Joe Rogan style podcast? Really freaking expensive, right? Yeah. Getting all those guests there, coordinating that, having that audience, having that distribution. So what do I need first? I need a way to fund it. I need a business that's going to support this. So what am I doing? I'm building my business first. I'm building this cash producing machine. And that means that some of the people that I want to interview right now, some of the content that I want to put out right now, it's going to have to wait a little bit. I've got to go and put out content right now that's going to serve my current audience now until I build my profitable business, till I make it profitable. And then after I have this cash producing machine, I can pull $50,000 out of that and I can go buy my way to an audience. I can buy my way to exposure.
I love it. You literally just gave the entire formula of this content game. Like how people ask us every time, how do I get started? How am I like everywhere? I'm like, okay, where are you now? And like, you just explained it so clearly. So guys, if you're listening, please take action. Follow Josh's advice, because he's a guy that has built an audience. Go back, listen to that intro, because everything that we said there was true, and all the value that he's been giving through the interview as well. So
yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we are running a little bit out of time. Yeah. We're definitely going to have to do a part 2.
If you guys want to keep going, I'll go for another 15 minutes. That's fine. It's up to you.
I mean, now we can do a 24-hour marathon starting now.
I don't know how that will work, but I have another 10 to 15 if you want to roll.
Love it. So, Josh, we always leave the audience with an action point, right? And you've given so many, but let's say what would be something that is really valuable that you've learned in this new Josh, right? Part 2 Josh, that entrepreneurs are not just starting with their businesses, but maybe they have something running, but they wanna up their level, their game with content, kind of like what you do, right? Like what do they do? What's the next step?
Specifically in the content game, correct?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. You need to know the strategy first. Like, you know you're building first. You don't need to know the grit details of it. Like, you don't need to figure out the day-to-day. You don't need to figure out every single piece of content that you're going to create this month right now. But you do need to understand why you're building what it is that you're building. I'm really big on this, right? I work with audiences all the time. I've worked with Steve Larson. I've worked with Brad Gibbs. I've worked with ClickFunnels. I've worked with big, massive content producers. Yeah. And every single one of them, no matter how big or small they are, I always start them at the same place. And that is, we need to know what the strategy is and what it is that you're actually after. I'd say that most people listening to this show right now, most people that, listen to this, if I understand your guys' audience correctly, are entrepreneurial related, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the first thing I got to ask myself before I'm going to produce content is, okay, why am I producing content? I'm going to answer that question for most people. If your answer is different than this, then you're going to have maybe a different format or different strategy. But most entrepreneurs that are going to produce content, first, we got to understand that there's 2 types of content. All right, there is content as a product, and then there's content as an advertising form or as an educational tool. All right, a lot of influencers sell content as a product. That is not what we're creating. Logan Paul creates content as a product, right? Yeah. Why? Because he literally, and this is a big misconception, right? Logan Paul's customers are not his fan base. Well, they are now because he shifted or whatever. Most influencers that get paid, Joe Rogan, his customers are not his fan base. His customers are businesses that want to advertise, right?
Yeah.
If you're creating content as a show format and are looking for advertisers, then your content is your product. Most entrepreneurs, that is not the case, okay? Most entrepreneurs, myself included, as much as I'd love to be in this category, we're in the category of content as our education tool, as our advertising tool, as our indoctrination sequence, okay?
Yeah.
We are building an audience and we are producing content to build an audience of customers and to educate and serve our customers, all right? So when you look at that and you go, okay, I am not building my audience to become famous. I am not building my audience to go out there and get millions of views right now. Right? I'm not trying to go viral. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to serve my customers and my loyal fans to create customers, right?
Yeah.
So if that's going to be the case and I want to start a movement and I want to build this, then I need to look at how do I actually build an audience, all right? And so there's a book, I highly recommend everybody gets it. It's called Tribes by Seth Godin, all right? And it's basically people want to follow you, all right? They do.
Yeah.
And so in that book, he talks about how in order for an audience or a community, a tribe to thrive, no matter if it was 1,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, or today, you have to have your leader. The leader has to be able to talk to the followers. The followers have to be able to talk to each other, and the followers need to be able to talk back to the leader. All right. So if I'm building an audience, I'm building a movement around my message, around my message, my company.
Yeah.
And I know that I'm the leader and I want my followers and I know that I have to be able to have all those 3 things in place. The question that I need to ask myself is, what is the single best place for me to do that starting out? Yeah. Well, guess what? There's only one platform, only one social platform in all of social platforms that allows all 3 of those things to happen and correctly. You know what that is?
Facebook groups.
It's a Facebook group.
There you go, baby.
Right?
Yeah.
It's the only platform where you talk to each other. It's a community of your own. Yep. You can talk to them. They can talk to you. You can talk to each other. So I'm like, you got to know your strategy. So first thing I tell people to launch is a Facebook group. Why? It's not because Facebook groups are this magical thing that are just going to make everything better. No, it's because that platform allows you to fulfill what it is that we're actually trying to do, right?
Yeah.
Instagram is not bad. YouTube isn't bad. It just doesn't allow that. The rest of the things come later. So your Facebook group is like that central hub. So it's like, okay, so the first thing I'm going to launch when it's content, if I know my strategy and I know, okay, what am I after? I'm off after an audience of customers and being able to serve my customers. I know that I'm going to produce content for them and I know what my message is around that. All right. So I've got to build that first. I'm going to produce content there. Next question is, where am I going to build that? Like, what platform is that I'm going to build it on? All right. So what's my message? Okay. I know I'm going to build around that message. Now what platform? Now it's a Facebook group. Now I go through and I start to produce content there. And then, so you just continue to ask yourself the question of like, what's my strategy? What am I after? What am I trying to do? What platform or what piece of content allows me to fulfill on that strategy the most effectively? So the first thing I tell everybody to launch is a Facebook group. That's why. The second platform I tell people to launch is I go, okay, well, if I've got a Facebook group, I've got all these people in there. I want to maximize the amount of money that I can pull out of a Facebook group. Just in a Facebook group, I can make X number of dollars. But what if I highly educated my audience? What if I highly educated the people that most about me? Oh, the fact that 70% of all podcast listeners make over like $70,000 or $100,000 a year, that have better jobs, are better educated, are more willing to spend, are more my dream customer. Oh, okay, I should probably start a podcast. So the second thing I do is I'm like, now I'm going to go start a podcast. Why? I have a Facebook group because that's the centralized hub of everything that I do. But now I'm going to educate my most valuable customers in there with a podcast and get them loyal onto me. Podcast fulfills that best. Now I'm going to launch a podcast. Now everything else just feeds those two because now I have a place where I hub and I have a way to extract my most valuable customer. Yeah. So you've got to know like, okay, like what's the strategy that I'm building? And what people do is they, no offense, Gary Vee, but you suck when you say this, just be everywhere, right? Like just produce 100 pieces of content today. Okay, if you're Gary Vee, that is correct. That is the answer, right? If you are a beginner, that's like the worst possible thing that you can do because that doesn't fulfill a strategy. That's just produce massive amounts of content. So my biggest piece of advice to someone is understand what your strategy is. Find the platforms and the pieces of content, the style of content that will best fulfill on that strategy, and then go out and execute on that until that is built perfectly. And don't move on to the next one until you can walk away from the first one and have everything systemized and you like know your metrics there. If that's not systemized, if that's not down, like don't launch the next thing or else you're just going to get overwhelmed. Make sense?
Yeah. Oh, totally. I want to drop this real quick. Give me 1 second. Here we go. That was awesome.
Yeah, and I think that's like the perfect segue to we kind of know that you're launching something really soon. So we want you to tell our audience, what are you doing? What's happening? And then how can people find you and communicate with you? Yeah, for sure. So, well, that actually is a perfect segue into that. June 1st of this year, we're doing a workshop. It's a free 5-day workshop. Registration opens a week from today, actually. Monday, May 25th is when it will open. And then on June 1st is when we're actually going to go live. And in this 5-day workshop, we're going to be teaching over the course of 5 days how to launch a wildly profitable audience of engaged paying customers that are immediately ready to buy from you. And by immediately, I mean like within the first like 1 to 2 weeks, all right? Like that fast, like instant cash when you launch that. And this can be done even without an existing audience and without paying for ads. So 6 million followers grown and managed by myself and my team, over $3 million in cash collected for my clients and students, $0 in advertising ever spent on any of those, on any of that money. Okay? Amazing. Yes, for those listening, guys, please go ahead, follow Josh because you have to be present for this. I mean, we will be there.
Not only follow, go check out his course, pre-register, register, just join.
Do what Josh says.
Yeah, we've seen his work with other people, right? That we follow closely, and it's amazing.
Yeah, and so I would say that the link for that's going to be it's not out until the 25th. So if you go there now, it's just going to give you to my Think Different. It'll just redirect to my Think Different Theory page. But joshforti.com/workshop. So just joshforti.com, my first name, last name.com/workshop. And that will take you to the landing page where you can sign up. You can register for the training. It's going to be so amazing. We're expecting probably over 1,000 people registered for it, which is going to be super, super, super exciting. But the workshop is completely free. And the cool thing about this workshop, though, is that you actually are going to, and for free, just for signing up, you're going to get a PDF download where it's actually going to be a workbook or a worksheet for each of the 5 days. So each of the 5 days, you will have an assignment that you will answer certain questions each day for your specific business. So it's like, okay, are you trying to do this or trying to do this? And at the end, on day number 5, I'm going to tie it all together so that you literally have, at the end, you have this worksheet of like, okay, this is where I'm at in my business. This is my pain points. This is what I'm trying to do. This is what I need to do. And like, here are the steps. So we're going to talk about like how to your platform, the most platform for your business, how to design and craft your messaging, how to produce a lot of content and how to know how to distribute it, how to structure your offer, how to launch in 63 days, like launch your entire audience in 63 days or less. Like we cover all of that. And so by the time you're done, you've got this worksheet where it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like this is what I need to do. Like here's the next steps. And that's all for free. Yes, obviously there's going to be a pitch at the end of it. We do have something to sell. I want to be very transparent, but like you're going to have this sheet completely for free. I'm not going to be like, and you only get that if you, no, like it's yours. Like you now have this game plan, the strategy. My goal is to, like, I want to create customers. I know that not everybody's ready for a customer. Not everybody's ready to launch an audience yet. I think everybody should, but not everybody's ready. Right. Yeah. So like my goal is to show you and give you this worksheet. And then you can look at it at the end and go, am I ready? Yes or no? And then based on where you think that you fall, you can decide whether or not my offer for you is the next right step. I'm not going to pressure you into hard selling it. We're going to have 1,000 people there. We're going to have our hands full. All right. So like showing up for that and like learning from that, there'll be a tremendous amount of value there.
Amazing. I mean, we'll be there for sure. So with that, Josh, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate you. Stick around so we can say bye to the Facebook Live. But with that being said, guys,
thank you so much.
Don't forget to subscribe, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next episode.
That's right, guys. And please don't forget to share it with those people that this is going to bring value to. And don't forget to sign up in Josh's workshop.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye.
How's that day? Awesome.
All right,
we're still here.
Facebook.
We're still with. Is this like so? Do we do like behind the scenes now? Do we get like a exclusive Q&A on Facebook?
Good, but we're not doing that at the moment.
But we actually got a pretty cool idea. I mean, we're gonna share it here on Facebook, right? Why not?
Yeah.
And we actually got this idea from Logan Paul that you mentioned in the podcast, right? In his podcast, he has a segment where he only records it, and then he's like, you can only listen to it in Spotify. Right, so he drives traffic to Spotify
on audio. Yeah.
So we were like, what do we do that? We just record a segment and we say we're gonna either put it in a Facebook group or in a membership site where they can go, right?
Yeah.
So I love that.
Yeah, kind of like a little lead gen, and we actually doing something of those sorts already for the back end.
We'll tell you offline. All right, Josh. So before we leave Facebook Live, let's do a quick selfie. So just look at the camera and do a big smile. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Awesome, Facebook. Thank you so much for staying and your patient. Tune in at 4 because we have Cassie Brown coming and she is bringing a ton of value. She's launching something really cool too. So we'll see you guys at 4. See you offline.